Hello, twisted humans.
Do you find yourself wanting to know more about the latest murder, conspiracy, cult, or haunting?
Then this is the podcast for you. I'm Alecia.
And I'm Sierra, and this is
Twisted and Uncorked. I still don't know how to clap, just in case any of our listeners were looking for an update. Still get a weird squiggle line.
My clap actually isn't very good on that one either.
Huh, maybe I'm rubbing off on you.
Actually, I lied. I was looking at the wrong thing.
Get out.
My clap is all the way. Sorry.
It's a running joke on the show, because when... cheers! We're both rocking our glasses.
Wait, I gotta make the noise.
Cheers! Atta girl. I love it. It looks good on the chubby glass. Our glasses are a little different. Mm-hmm. I mean, my particular decal was not made by the one and only Sierra, but yours will be if you sign up for our Patreon and choose the wine glass option. Also, just a reminder to our patrons as well is you can buy any of our Patreon only merch. I am in the process of creating a little mini storefront that will be linked on Patreon. And yeah, you can buy those. And that could include a wine glass. Or you can just sign up for that tier level and get all of the things and support your favorite podcast and get lots of bonus content and have fun with us every week.
Yes. We have lots of fun.
Stuff. We do.
We really do.
I'm honestly having so much fun with Sierra being my co-host.
I'm so glad I'm having fun too.
Mm-hmm. So, we are on episode 8.
Goodness.
These seem to be flying by. And it's funny because we're kind of restarting, so we're reliving all of these milestones, and we're almost at 1,000 downloads. So that's exciting too.
Yes.
I know we both already relived these milestones on our previous podcast, but we're joining forces, and this one's way better. So
yeah,
that's my little spiel about that. And that leads me to thank you guys so much for listening. Honestly, we could just talk to ourselves each week, but with that said, all of your listenership means a lot to us. It really does. Like-minded, twisted humans, and we couldn't do it without you. So if you like the show, just a reminder to pretty please leave us a review. Even if you don't want to do the review and you just want to leave like an emoji, we'll accept the emoji. Yeah. Or if you don't even have time for the emoji, just the 5 stars. 1 click.
Yep, just click.
And if you don't have time to click a button, yell about how awesome Twisted and Uncorked is to somebody random on the street. But
yeah, while you're driving down the road and you come to a red
Twisted
light,
and Uncorked.
Both of you have your windows down, just yell it out.
And if anybody actually does this, we would really like to hear about it because that's really funny.
Yeah, please record it.
Right? But truly, it does mean a lot to us. So those are the 3 ways you can kind of support the show, and we couldn't do it without you. So that's my little spiel.
Spiel before the wine spiel.
The spiel before the wine spiel, but before the wine spiel, would it be an episode of Twisted and Uncorked if I didn't freak you out with a fun fact?
It would not. Tell me.
So, and this one's rough. Hold on. Where are my notes?
I have some
I don't want to say it wrong. I don't want to say it wrong. Why do I have 8,000 tabs open? So, moths will vibrate their genitals as a way to prevent bats from locating them, so it throws off their echolocation.
That is very,
You didn't think I was going to start the show with vibrating genitals, did you?
No. I don't know if I like it.
Right.
Like...
Sierra's given more thought to
like
moth genitals than she ever wanted to at this point, if anybody's not watching on YouTube.
I mean, it's kind of like really smart, you know? Like, good for them. There's
Nature.
Some smart-ass creatures. But also, like, can't you vibrate any other part of your body? I don't...
Like a leg.
Don't understand why.
Your antennae. your wings.
A
No,
wing?
it need one wing. Yeah. No, it needs to be genitals.
Yeah.
Hey, moths can
Okay,
say
fine.
that their genitals are good for
I
more than
approve.
one thing, unlike ours. So there you go. They're just
It's
resourceful.
true. There you go.
I also did not know that moths had genitals, but I guess that makes sense. They have to. I don't even know how bugs reproduce. We could get into a whole other episode about this, but
Oh, gosh.
it sent me down a rabbit hole, guys. But it is smart. It's actually a really brilliant survival technique, but gross.
Can you imagine if humans had evolved to vibrate their genitals for safety?
They
What a
do, and I think it's
strange
just
thing.
called frat boys.
I think that's the opposite of safety.
Yeah, I think it's more to hope to reproduce, but with no such avail.
Yeah, never.
Do you have a creepy
Goodness.
fact for me?
I do. It's also about bugs. So look at us.
How are we always on the same wavelength? We're like 3 for
Yeah.
3. Sometimes we talk about
See.
the ocean, sometimes we talk about your body, sometimes we talk about bugs.
So when ants die, they emit oleic acid, which tells the living ants to dispose of their corpse.
Oh.
But there was a ant scientist, I'm not going to try to pronounce what it is called scientifically, who discovered the chemical, the oleic acid, and he dropped a drop of this acid onto a living ant. It didn't hurt the ant, but all the other ants thought it was dead and carried it off and buried it alive. But also, the ant itself believed it was dead, so it stayed in the buried ground until the acid wore off and then finally came back out like, oh, hey, I wasn't dead, actually.
Oh, just kidding, yeah.
Like, what
That's
the
a
fuck?
relief. I thought I was dead this whole time. What?
Yeah, no. He was alive, but he thought he was dead, and everyone else around him thought he was dead. Imagine if someone just, like, if you just, I mean, that's basically a zombie, right?
Yeah.
Like, when we think we're dead, we start to decompose, and we're like, oh shit, we're dead. You know? I mean, we don't think that because we're dead, but you know what I mean.
That's so weird.
And then you just stop decomposing and you're normal again, and you come back like, actually, I'm not dead.
It
So,
was a silly
Just a zombie.
misunderstanding.
yeah, that's insane.
What? What are bugs? Seriously.
What are bugs?
I learned more than I ever wanted to about bugs in the last minute. I'm okay with it, though.
Very
So,
interesting things. Anyway, welcome to Twisted and Uncorked.
as I'm, like, licking my wine glass like a creep and we're talking about bugs, yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody turned off their computer, their headphones are gone, they've left. Nope, it's just us again. That's okay. So if you guys also, if you have any weird facts that you want to share with
Yes.
us, please do.
Please share.
We would love to hear your weird facts because
We'll read them on the
hunt,
podcast if you insist.
Yes. If you insist. We will anyway. Even if you don't. Unless you don't want us to. But we would love to learn something new from our twisted humans because you guys are weird too. And let's face it, you've gone down these Google rabbit holes like we have. So,
Yeah.
But nothing like a good rabbit hole. Wait, I don't know why that was my segment or my segue. It didn't make any sense.
To talk about wine?
I was gonna go from rabbit holes to wine, but I couldn't figure out a way to get there. So
Yeah.
sorry guys,
fine.
that was a fail.
Let's
on
go
my
back to you licking the glass, and then what is in the glass you're licking?
Well, funny you should ask, Sierra. So, Sierra actually picked our wine this week. She had originally picked another one, but funny story, it only comes at 5% alcohol.
Who does? Can we take a minute?
So
to talk
that's
about
not
this for a
wine.
second? Yeah, no, like what? Gen
That is a
Z
hard seltzer at
person
best.
decided that wine, any alcohol, could or should have less alcohol in it. Stupid little bubs that I got that was supposed to be the bubbles. And I thought, here I am thinking, oh, it's a light beer, meaning there's less calories. No, there's less alcohol. Who does that? Like, why? Why do we do that? That nobody wants less alcohol. They just want to be less fat. That's all.
Trademark that, guys. Hey, skinny wine exists, and it's horrible.
True. And it probably has more alcohol than Stella Rosa. Sorry, Stella Rosa. No offense. Put more alcohol.
I'm sure your beverage is great. I can't even call it wine. It feels wrong to call it wine. It wouldn't even taste like wine.
Not the one that I was going to get today, but I've had like the watermelon one and the peach one, and they're really, really good. But if they're all 5%, which I checked the other red, the black and the red are both only 5%. So I assume they all are 5% or less. And that's just
Has
crazy.
your world just been shattered? I'm so sorry
Yes.
for you.
I feel like I can never buy this wine again. What's the point? It's not even
You're like, at that point, I'm just going to drink my cider or my beer that I want.
Or my fucking water. Jeez.
Yeah. There you go. That's no calories for you.
Yeah. So anyway, I had to pick a different wine.
Yes, and she picked Sideshow, the Ringmaster. So it's called Sideshow number 5, which is their red blend. And the bottle is really cool and circusy and fun. Yes, thank you. Mm-hmm. And so I could not find the red blend, but I did find their Shiraz. And it's the same number 5, but it's Shiraz. So I think they have like volumes of wine. I'm not really sure how they base it, but the bottles are all really cool.
What is that one called?
Mine?
Yeah.
Instead of Ringmaster, it just says Shiraz.
Oh, okay. Is there a snake on it?
Yes.
Okay, I saw that one. Yeah.
Did you?
I was gonna get that one, but I read the ingredient or the flavor profile and it said something about black licorice, and I was like, no thanks.
Yes. So that is kind of what I'm going to be chatting about, because the red blend is heavy in Shiraz. I'm pretty sure it's about 60% of the red blend. So that's what I'm basing it off of, because I've just got the Shiraz. So typically, I'm not a huge Shiraz drinker. Those grapes have a heavier mouthfeel usually, which is what it's called when you get like that really jammy texture, like it lingers on your palate for a lot longer. Mm-hmm. I like smoother reds that are just kind of easier to drink, but everybody has preference, and this one's actually not too bad. I was pleasantly surprised. I don't know if Sierra is going to love it, just knowing who she is as a human. But, you know, she might surprise us. Either way,
my red blend isn't too bad.
I was going to say, either way, it's not 5% alcohol.
That's true. No, this one is, it's, in my opinion, drier, but also really wet. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It's like, it's like,
it makes
doesn't
your mouth
have
water.
Too much of a flavor. It's super like wet, but it also, the flavor feels dry. I don't know. It's weird.
We're going to make a TikTok video one day of like how Sierra describes wine. I love it so much. It's okay. Half the time when I describe wine to people, I go, you know, like that kind of taste. They're like, what? And for all of our listeners at home, I'm so sorry you had to hear that noise. But everybody knows exactly what I meant. They all went, oh yeah, I do that too. So funny little spiel about Shiraz here. So Shiraz and Syrahs are actually very commonly misconstrued to be different grape varietals, but they're actually the same. They're just different names depending on the region that they're in. So Syrah came first, and it is Arabic for princess, which is kind of cute. So cute. And then Shiraz is the name of the city in Iran. So they kind of came together that way. Like, that's how the two names came about, because the grapes were growing in the same region. They just kind of developed different names in different regions over time. Right. Some claim that the grapes were brought from Persia to France first, but no one knows for sure. But Syrahs or Shirazes, either or, are typically flavor profiles of like blackberry, black licorice, black or white pepper, espresso, occasionally like olives and bacon, but mostly that like deep jammy berry kind of flavor. And they are dark skinned grape varietals grown throughout the world and are usually used to produce red wine. Very rarely are they used in blends of rosés and things like that, but yeah, that's my little spiel. And it's mostly called Shiraz in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Canada, and parts of the US, which is why we know it more commonly to be Shiraz. And why this particular bottle that I'm drinking had Shiraz on it, because Sideshow is from Australia. So there you go.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Checks out. Oh yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. I always forget that they're the same grape.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I did not know that. Mm-hmm. So the bottle says, and I love this so much, it says, a collection of novelties and oddities from down under. And it makes me so happy.
I love that, yeah. I'm glad you read that out, because I was like, oh man, my bottle is so far away. I need to sit before
What's our topic for this week?
It is
Did we announce?
No.
Nice.
And before anybody says anything, because we had disappeared like 5 episodes ago, that is just the way that the wheel of life was spun. We cannot control it. It spoke to us. It said disappeared. So we must listen to the wheel of life. The only time we don't listen to the wheel of life is when it gives us the same category back to back. Then we say, fuck you. So yes, we are doing disappeared today. So my disappeared case is also Canadian, as my unsolved one was last week. And it's not very often that I do 2 Canadian girls back to back. Maybe it's because of all the missing women in my surrounding towns. Maybe it just has me on the lookout. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe it's Maybelline. We're not sure. But either way, it is International Women's Month. And yesterday was International Women's Day. So happy International Women's Day to my favorite lady right here.
Oh, thanks. You too.
So I am bringing you to the northern area of British Columbia, which is the province that I'm from, if anybody doesn't know, and to a little town called Vanderhoof. Very up north, very rural.
Very green.
A lot of little small towns, and Highway 16, which, if any of our listeners do not know, is the highway that stretches from coast to coast, or not coast to coast, from each side of the province, that is most commonly known as the Highway of Tears. So the reason I'm pointing that out is because that is one of the theories we will get into, just in case anybody's looking at this on our social media and is like, hey, that looks familiar. So keep that in mind. So today we are talking about a woman named Madison Scott, but she went by Maddie. She was born on April 29th, 1991 to Dawn and Eldon Scott. She was the middle child of 2 siblings, Ben and Georgia. The family was very happy and close-knit, and because it was such a small community, everybody kind of knew one another. And the Scott family was a very highly praised family in the neighborhood. Everybody really loved them. Maddie was described as a ball of energy. She was always looking for something new and exciting to experience. She was always kind to everyone. She was a good friend, a social butterfly. She was described by friends as, quote, super funny. And that if you were hanging out with her, you would never be doing anything boring. She was one of those girls that was always chasing the next adventure.
That sounds so
She was
sweet.
interested. Yeah, right. And I don't know if you're looking at a photo of her at all, but she's gorgeous. Got a great smile. She was interested in arts and film, anything outdoors. Her family and friends said there was nothing she couldn't do. She would go from being dressed up, coming home from a party, to in overalls working on her truck in a flash. She loved photography, comedy, dirt biking, and riding horses. Maddie graduated in 2009 and went to work with her dad as a heavy-duty mechanic at her dad's logging mill up in Vanderhoof. So, again, there's nothing this girl can't do. And we respect a strong, independent woman, which is why this case seemed very fitting for the day after International Women's Day.
Yes.
In May of 2011, Maddie was going to go to Hogsback Lake to go camping for the weekend for a friend's birthday. The birthday boy's name was Garrett Christensen, and this was a yearly event that took place up at Hogs Lake where they would just kind of camp for the weekend to celebrate his birthday. On this particular year in 2011, the event actually became a Facebook event, and it's still viewable. The event is still open, so I will post that in our episode notes like I usually do and link that as a source. But one of the biggest things that stood out to me when I was looking at the Facebook event was that it is marked as an open event. So keep that in mind as well. Open events always get out of control, guys. Just don't do it.
Yeah,
it's like when you have a
really
party,
do.
when your family goes away, and then somebody tells somebody, and somebody tells somebody, and then it just gets insane.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. I'm talking to Sierra's future older children here. Not worth it.
Oh, gosh. I don't even want to think about it.
I never threw a party, but I definitely, I think every rom-com movie about that going wrong has always scared the shit out of me into not doing it. Hence,
I did throw
Mean
a party.
Girls. Come on.
Yeah.
With the broken African vases. God.
Yeah.
And
I
Sierra,
threw a
did your party
at my
get out of
parents'
control?
house. And yeah, it was at an apartment. And there were way too many people there for it being an apartment. So basically the party was outside. Like, luckily my mom's apartment was my mom. So I have this strange relationship with my mom, especially from my high school days. But anyway, it was at my mom's apartment, and she was on a bottom floor. So it was like the patio, which opened up to the main street of the apartment. So it was like a street party. I'm surprised the
Sounds
cops
like a hot mess.
did not get called, but my parents did show up. So yeah, I got in trouble.
Yikes.
Yeah.
I can picture you shitting your pants.
I was a really bad child, so I was kind of just like, ugh, you ruined my party, you know. I was a bad kid.
None of my friends are going to talk to me anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, so Hogsback Lake. So there are 4 different campsites, like not individual campsites, but like actual campgrounds. There's 4 of them around Hogsback Lake. So Maddie and her friends that were going up camping for this party were all staying at the first part of the lake where you first enter the campground and like the regional park area. So the main campsite right at the front. And it was right along the lake and pretty close to the entrance, actually. There are lots of places to hike, bike, camp in this region in general, and obviously these are all activities that Maddie loved, so camping was was definitely sure to be one of them, which is why they all went up everywhere. Maddie had attended
Sounds
the
like
party.
my kind of people, sorry.
Right? Totally. I agree. And you know what? I'll maybe bring this up at the end. But
Okay.
Yeah, I'll bring it up at the end. So, definitely our people, though. And Maddie had attended the party with her friend Jordy Bolduc. They weren't super close. However, they had gone to high school together. And they were mutual friends that were going up to this party. So they thought, why not go together and camp together? It's been a while. Let's catch up kind of thing.
Right.
They took Maddie's beloved, she loved this truck, her white, like off-white 1990 Ford truck up on the evening of May 27th, 2011, so the Friday night of this party. Since they were going to be drinking, they planned to stay the night. Not everybody was, but they had already planned to stay the night, so they brought food, 2 tents, sleeping bags, toiletries, and a change of clothes. And, of course, alcohol. When they first arrived up at the lake, they realized that they had forgotten the poles for the larger tent that would sleep both of them. They kind of didn't realize what size each tent was, so they just grabbed both of them, and they figured they would sort it out once they got up there. But once they started to unfold it, they realized that only one tent would fit the two of them. The other one was just kind of this little pup tent. And they had to go back to Maddie's house to get the poles for the tent. So Maddie's mom recalled seeing them back at the house and had teased them about the incident and forgetting that. It's like, oh, good start to the night. Like,
Right.
So they grabbed the poles and they got back to the lake around 10 p.m. It's because they were gone for a little bit of time. They unfortunately had to pitch their tent in the dark, and everybody was kind of up in the swing of things. Once they had gotten themselves set up, they joined the party. The party grew to about 50 people between the ages of 18 and 25 years old, some of which the original partygoers recalled that they didn't even know. So that's what I was joking about parties getting out of control. Now, Hogsback Lake was known to be a party site for young campers. It was very common. Because of how secluded it was, you didn't have to worry about disrupting anybody, but because it was still close enough to main roads that it was easily accessible as well. Maddie was texting her mom at around 11:30, and they believe, just from tracing the steps of the night, that this would have been her crossing the parking lot of the campground to get to the only set of outhouses out there. So her mom stopped hearing back from her after a couple texts back and forth. However, reception up in this area was spotty. She was also at a party, so she might have just gotten distracted, kind of thing, or that she had gone to bed. But either way, her mom wasn't really worried about it. She had sent her a good night message and said they would touch base the next day. The conversation started because a partygoer was talking about a song, and they were trying to like resolve the fight about this song. So she was asking her mom what this song was called. While she was texting her mom, she also mentioned that there were a couple guys up at the party that Maddie didn't want to see. And so her mom inquired a little bit further. Maddie had let her know that there were two guys that were at the party that she had been chatting with on the dating websites that she had recently joined. One guy she really liked, but he didn't really seem to be reciprocating those feelings, and had said that he just wanted to be friends first, which, knife to the gut. The other guy was one that seemed to really like her, but she wasn't feeling that same spark, and although she really liked him, she didn't think it was going to go anywhere. So she had talked about that with him that night before she had texted her mom. And quoting Maddie, he had gotten a little huffy about the situation, but nothing too alarming. I know, I don't actually think that huffy is a real word, but it is such a descriptor of somebody's outward emotions.
It really is. Yeah.
After a few hours of party and fun, Maddie retired to her tent and her sleeping bag shortly before midnight when a fight broke out. So she was there for the good parts and skipped out on the bad parts. During this fight that had allegedly broken up after Maddie had gone to bed, Jordy, the girl that she had gone up with and was camping with that night, had gotten shoved over towards the fire pit and had hurt her knee and her hands. She made a really big deal about it, but from what everybody saw, it wasn't that big of a deal. At this point, Jordy was drunk, she was hurt, and she was just not having any fun anymore, and it was kind of putting a damper on her party mood.
This is all starting to sound like some sketchy shit's about to happen.
Yeah. So, that evening in particular, Jordy had taken a boyfriend. She started dating this new guy at this party. So, because she was miserable and hurt now, she opted to go home with her new boyfriend. So she started gathering up some of her stuff around midnight at around 12:30, because that's when this fight had broken out, was around midnight. So within that 30 minutes, she decided she wanted to go. Her and her boyfriend collected a few belongings. Around 1 o'clock in the morning, she had poked her head into her and Maddie's tent to let Maddie know that she was leaving, and allegedly, according to Jordy, she had asked Maddie to go with them. Maddie was already half asleep in her sleeping bag. All of her stuff was there. All of these partygoers planned to camp, allegedly. So she was going to do what she planned to do. And obviously, she was very upset. She had asked Jordy to stay and camp with her like they had planned. But there was no convincing her, and she still ended up leaving with her boyfriend. And they pulled out of the campground at around 1:30 in the morning.
Never leave someone at a party if you came there with them. Never.
I was going to say, we
Jesus.
seem to have developed this list of twisted and uncorked life rules.
Yeah.
I'm adding that to the list. If you go with somebody to any event ever, a party, a club, a campsite, a whatever, you leave with them. You don't leave them.
Yeah. Leave with them or leave them with someone you both mutually know and trust.
Exactly.
That's the only other option.
Exception to that rule, yes. Otherwise, you are bound with them. When I was doing my research, most people argue that, yeah, Jordy is a shitty friend. You shouldn't leave your friends. Some people argue that they weren't really that close and that they were going up because it was convenient together. Whatever the case may be, she shouldn't have left her. Jordy and her new boyfriend came back to the campsite around 8:30 a.m. the next morning on Saturday to get a couple of Jordy's clothes and her sleeping bag before Jordy went to work for the rest of the day. So when they had gotten there, Maddie's tent was the only one still on the campsite, but her tent was unzipped and the contents of her tent seemed to be pushed off to the side. But other than that, nothing was strange, and Jordy grabbed her stuff from inside the tent and thought maybe that Maddie had gone for a hike or something early that morning. Didn't really think anything of it. Now, I will say another nail in Jordy's coffin here is that she never actually attempted to check in with Maddie after realizing that when she came back the next day that she wasn't on the campsite. So she never even tried to text or call her.
You should already be like, wait, what's going on, when her tent is the only one still there.
And it's empty.
Like, that's...
Like, she's not in it.
There's a problem when everybody else took their tent down and she just didn't.
Yeah.
And she's not there. Like, there's... I'm pretty sure I've heard this story before, but I don't think I've heard all of these details, and it's driving me insane.
Ooh. I'm dragging it out. I'm leading the little trail of breadcrumbs for you. Mm-hmm. I got to keep you interested. You're stuck with me for a long time, so... And so the last time Jordy had seen Maddie was at 1:30 a.m. the next day, technically the night before day, and didn't see her when she came back at 8:30. So sometime between those 7 hours, something happened. We don't know. Now we go to Sunday morning. Still no one has heard from Maddie. Her mom, her dad, her siblings, her friends, nobody's heard from her. And most people knew that she was camping for the weekend for Garrett's party. So they were starting to worry a little bit at this point, as this was around the time where they would be heading back or packing up their stuff to head back and would be getting onto the main road fairly soon, which would make reception a little bit more stable, which would mean that she would be able to get in touch with her family. Now Dawn was starting to worry after she wasn't able to get through to Maddie, or reach her in any way. So she then calls Jordy's mom. And Jordy's mom informs Maddie's mom, Dawn, that Jordy had been back for almost an entire day and Maddie wasn't with her. Mm-hmm. So now that's like every mom's worst nightmare to hear that the person that you went up with came back alone and nobody thought to tell her family. So she and her parents really tried to respect the fact that she was like a strong, independent woman. But after 2 days of not even touching base, after they had literally been having a conversation via text on Friday night, was just a little strange. So panic starts to set in, and Dawn and Eldon get in the car and drive directly to Hogsback Lake Campground to see if they can find their daughter. They're hoping at this point, when they reach the campsite, that she'll be there packing up, maybe enjoying a little bit of time by the lake, that she's totally fine, but they won't know until they get there. And I get that, wanting that peace of mind. So when they arrive, their dreams are dashed when they don't find Maddie on the campsite, but instead find her deserted truck and now flattened tent. Maddie was nowhere to be found. just outside the tent, her mom found a pair of costume earrings, like not expensive earrings or anything, but they were earrings that belonged to Maddie. Other than that, nothing seemed to be out of place. Her belongings were all still in the tent. Her sleeping bag was still in there. Her food, her purse, and even some of the alcohol that she had brought up with her was still in the cooler. There were also expensive pieces of dirt bike equipment in the back of Maddie's truck that she had just picked up that week and would not have left without because she was going to be working on one of her bikes.
Yeah. Well, why would she leave without her truck in general?
Yeah, exactly. She loved that truck. Yeah. So the two items that were missing out of everything that Maddie had brought up with her was her cell phone and the large chunky keychain that held her Ford truck key. No matter what way you look at this situation, though, where Maddie is at this point, that would make sense to go with you if you're camping, even if you had gone for a hike or something, because you would lock all your stuff in your truck and you would just have your phone.
Right.
So that kind of makes sense. Or if she had gone for a walk to another campsite or whatever. I'm trying to play devil's advocate here because this case is bananas. Dawn calls the police and files a missing persons report at this point after seeing the scene. No sign of Maddie, still not able to get a hold of her on her phone. So while they're there waiting for the police to arrive, they don't waste any time. They're talking to anyone that they can in the surrounding campsites. Like, have you seen my daughter?
I'd do the same thing.
Were you at this party? Blah, blah, blah. I would do the same thing too. And they even take it one step beyond, and they are flagging down cars as well that are leaving the campgrounds. Because keep in mind, it's Sunday morning. That's usually when people are packing up for the weekend and leaving, right? So they're trying to capture as many people as they can filing out of the campsite. But nobody, like, a lot, because it's such a small town, people knew who Maddie was, but they were like, I didn't see her. Like, I know who that is, but I haven't seen her. So during this whole process of them talking to other campers and people that were there over the weekend, they learned that there was another party on a campground nearby where Maddie's was. And it was actually around 100 people, and this was on the Saturday night. So we know from Maddie's mom and the other partygoers, and just what was left at the scene, is that there's no way that Maddie was intoxicated in any way. She had brought up one bottle of wine and a case of beer, and there were still some beers left in the cooler. And additionally, it was reported that Maddie was sharing her bottle of wine with a bunch of people at the party. So she would have had her wits about her, so to speak.
Right. Unless she was drugged. Someone slipped a little pill into one of those drinks. That's a possibility.
That's possible.
But
however,
by her own account,
Yes. When she was texting her mom around 11:30, before she had allegedly gone and retired to her tent, her mom didn't notice anything weird about her text either, so.
Yeah.
But yes, keep that drug theory in mind because it is possible. So what we do know is that Maddie had gone to use the bathroom across the parking lot before going back to her tent and going into her sleeping bag at around 11:30. Then we know at that point that Jordy had said goodbye to her around 1:30 in the morning in her tent before she left. So that
was Friday night / Saturday morning, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was before the second party.
Yes, and before Sunday when they're now here.
Right, okay.
So the search efforts were well calculated and extensive. Due to the rough terrain of the British Columbia interior, they had to be very calculated and plan their search very carefully. Maddie was loved by her community, and many members of the community came out to help volunteer in search as well. Maddie's boss even brought sonar equipment to help in searching the lake floor. Hogsback Lake isn't huge. It's about 120 acres and 22 feet deep at the deepest point. But because they were camping in the campground right next to the lake, like literally off the lake, if something had happened and maybe she'd gone for a swim, maybe they're just trying to rule out everywhere that she could have possibly gone. So he himself, as well as the investigators, searched the lake floor for about 10 hours. And combed through everything, but nothing was found.
Does it say what the trails were like? Like, was it rough terrain? They searched the trails, right?
Yes.
But
that is part of this rough terrain. Yes, there are cliffs and things like that that hang over the lake and stuff too.
Anything not over the lake. Like a straight drop. You know what I mean? And
like
I
a
assume they
ravine
searched
kind of
that,
situation when you're walking like a trail and you turn and you see like that drop down the side of the trees and stuff. Yes, that was all
Right.
all part of it, which is why they had to be so careful about how they searched and where they searched, because there was all that brush to search, and for the most part it had to be done on foot. But there were trails that led off Hogsback Lake that were easier. Like most campgrounds, there's different levels. Like they'll have like a how experienced or how fit should you be if you're going to do this, or is it
Like
made for
beginner,
horses,
intermediate,
or is it made for ATVs, or is it like that kind of stuff? Should you be walking?
Yeah.
So from start to finish, from the minute that the missing persons case was filed, investigators treated Maddie's campsite like a crime scene. They had nothing to point why they shouldn't. They're in the rural interior of British Columbia with a missing 20-year-old girl. So
That's great.
they blocked everything
Surprising, but great.
Yes, right? I mean, Canadian police officers aren't perfect either, but they did this part right. So her tent and her bedding were both sent to forensics, but nothing unusual came back, just fibers that would have been Maddie's. And other than her tent being collapsed on that Sunday morning when her parents arrived, nothing was unusual about the scene either. After a few days, the search efforts were called off as they had covered enough ground to be certain that there was no evidence that Maddie was in the immediate area surrounding them. A press conference was held, and a team of 14 investigators from around the province were put on the case. The first thing that needed to happen after the police had talked to friends and family was to learn every single person that had been at that campsite over the weekend.
Goodness gracious.
Starting with the party on Friday night.
Yeah.
They were able to get a complete list by talking to partygoers as well as the Facebook event that I mentioned that's still active, so that they could start conducting interviews with these people. They learned that the reason that Maddie's tent was flattened was because a drunk teenager at the Saturday night party had stumbled and fallen onto Maddie's tent. That said, Maddie was not at that party, from what the partygoers had said. However, her campsite was the epicenter for this party. Like, people were gathering, spilling into her campsite, around her tent, around her truck. Like, but nobody thought that was weird. Like, whoever's campsite this is isn't here. Like, anyways.
Yeah, that's strange.
And then we know that the Friday night party was at that campsite because that's what that they had rented out for the birthday boys weekend. They also learn in their search that Garrett, the birthday boy, and his girlfriend had gotten into a fight the night before and had left the campground, packed up and left the campground at approximately 2:30 in the morning. So this was an hour after Jordy had left. Some of the sober drivers that were offering to give people rides back to their homes outside of town were starting to come back and had taken Garrett and his girlfriend as well. They had called out to Maddie to see if she also wanted a ride, but she had declined, that she was all set up for the night and she didn't want to leave her stuff. This was now at about 2:30 in the morning. So now at some point between 2:30 and 8:30. So the window is getting narrower.
Right.
Investigators, as well as Maddie's parents, believe that she would not have been aware that she was the only one left camping when people were starting to pack up and get rides home. If she had known this, she wouldn't have stayed the night by herself. They know that she's independent and that she loves nature, but knowing that she was the last camper there, she wouldn't have stayed.
Did they only have the space rented for the one night? Like,
no,
the
for
birthday
the whole
boys weekend. Why did everybody seem to leave?
Because the party had gone sour. People were fighting. People are silly. But yes, they did have it booked for the whole weekend, which is why park rangers and stuff going around the campsite didn't even report Maddie's truck or Maddie's anything because she was still camping there. So, yeah, very strange. So, like I said, investigators don't believe that Maddie would have stayed if she had known she was the last one there.
Right.
So, my theory is that at some point in the middle of the night, if she had gotten up to go to the washroom, she might have seen that she was the only one left. And like, that fucking sucks. That's a shitty feeling. Who knows? But we don't know what happened between 2:30 in the morning and 8:30 that morning when Jordy had shown up. And then we also learn through these interviews that Garrett and his girlfriend had gone back to the campsite at around 9:30 a.m. that Saturday. So an hour after Jordy had to clean up the campsite because they were the ones that had rented it out. Kind of a responsible adult move. I do respect that. So this was 9:30. They were cleaning up around the tent. They noticed that this time, because obviously they didn't talk to Jordy in this hour window, Garrett and his girlfriend had reported that Maddie's tent was zipped up and the flap was not open as it had been an hour before. They thought that she had to still be sleeping, so they cleaned up around the tent and the area as quietly as they could.
They said that her tent was zipped up?
Yes.
And
so
Jordy
when Jordy went
not.
at 8:30, it was open, and she was able to grab her stuff, and Maddie wasn't in the tent. An hour later, Garrett and his girlfriend are there at around 9:30 to clean up the campsite, and they see that her tent is zipped up, so they think she's sleeping. Interesting, right? One little detail that's like super creepy to me. Now, with all of this new information that's come in, they've interviewed some of the partygoers. A second search is conducted of the area. And this is now a couple weeks after Maddie's been missing. So just so they can be absolutely sure that they miss nothing. Like I said, it's rough terrain. There's hills, there's lakes, there's mountains, there's ravines, there's heavy wooded areas, there's all sorts of stuff. So they needed to be absolutely certain that they didn't miss anything, and they actually had about 5,000 volunteers from the town as well as the surrounding towns that knew of Maddie. Like, they just really wanted to find her and have her home safe. The community even held several fundraisers in order to have an infrared helicopter brought in. Because it was such a small town, that wasn't within the police's immediate resources, so obviously they had to pull some strings for it. Every hour that helicopter was up in the air was $800. So that's a huge amount of money for such a small town. But it's also really heartwarming, and it also shows you how far Maddie's family and Maddie herself reached in her little community. Like, her boss was the one combing the lake. Like, it just goes to show you how loved she was. They completely searched the 60 square kilometer radius surrounding Hog's Back Lake. So they were very, very certain that she was not anywhere in the surrounding areas at this point. Sniffer dogs cadaver dogs were also brought in. I like to call them sniffer dogs, around the campsite as well, but beyond the actual campsite that they were staying in, they weren't able to hit on Maddie's scent anywhere. So it led nowhere outside of her campsite. Yeah. Which is even scarier. Because typically they'll hit in a direction and at least give police a starting point, but they had nothing. They've already searched everything. They've combed the lake. They've brought in sniffer dogs. It's not leading them in any direction. Maddie's parents at this point make a public plea for anyone with any possible information to come forward. They think that one of the partygoers may be the key that they need to find their daughter's whereabouts. They think that if somebody does have the information, that they're keeping it quiet. However, during the police interviews, anybody that they thought could have been hiding something did undergo a polygraph test. However, we know that can be unreliable at times. But it was one more means to rule these people out. And some of these people that went to the party didn't even remember seeing Maddie. But they were just trying to piece some of the traces around her. Like, what was everybody else doing? What was going on at this time? Currently, there's also an advertised $100,000 reward funded by Maddie's family, as well as the town fundraising for anyone that has any information leading to the arrest or the location of Maddie. Her friends and family actually put on a yearly poker ride as well around the Hogsback Lake areas to raise awareness for her case. And it's been kind of the flagship event in the effort to keep her awareness fresh in public's eye, because this is such a rural town, a small area of British Columbia. However, all of these efforts were paying off, and Maddie's story started reaching other countries, other parts of Canada. So the word was spreading. The fundraiser and the trail rides around Hogsback Lake area also are just there to help keep her last steps and everything in mind too. That maybe it'll trigger something for somebody at some point. They'll learn, maybe uncover a thought that they had forgotten about.
Right.
Something like that. And as of 2 years ago, police even did a reenactment scene of what they believe Maddie's last steps were, filmed it, set up like the whole stage around Hogsback Lake in that same campsite in hopes that that video would also help trigger some memories, because as we know, alcohol, you forget things, but something might trigger a memory and you might remember something that you wouldn't have in your intoxicated state. So they were literally doing everything that they could. Her parents actually have converted their basement into their own base for searching into the whereabouts of their daughter. And yes, that is like a corkboard and string type situation where everybody at the party is there. So sad. All of their movements are there. Incredibly sad. So this year, as of May 2021, will be the 10-year anniversary since Maddie's been missing. And I personally hope more than anything that we get answers for this one. I mean, there's so many cases that I get attached to, but this one just doesn't make any sense. Within a 5-hour window, this girl is just gone. And then the whole tent being unzipped and then being zipped an hour later is just weird. Like, it's very possible that Jordy would have been remembering incorrectly. However, she went into the tent to get her stuff. Whether or not it was zipped when she first got there, we know Maddie wasn't in the tent. The RCMP has this case open and active still. They're not closing it or chalking it up to an accident or anything like that. And they continue to follow up on each and every tip that they receive regarding Madison's disappearance. No matter how small or seemingly insignificant, they feel like they just need this final piece. They believe that something criminal may have happened between 4 a.m. and 8:30 a.m. that morning. I don't know why they've gone from 2:30 in the morning to 4:30, but I'm assuming there was still bustle or people leaving or like throughout the night. So maybe that's why they're thinking that, and those details just weren't released after they had done the interviews. On May 28th, that led to her disappearance, and they, as well as her family, do not believe that she just walked away. If you have any information that might help the police with this, you're asked to call the Vanderhoof Police Department, or if you want to remain anonymous, Crime Stoppers. And I will, of course, link all of that on our episode blog for Maddie, as well as in the show notes. So Maddie was last seen wearing a black t-shirt and dark blue capri pants. She is a female, white with medium complexion. Her hair is medium length ginger/auburny. Her eyes are hazel or green. She weighed about 160 pounds, was about 5'4". She has a bird silhouette tattoo on the inside of her left wrist. Her ears are pierced and her left nostril is pierced with a little hoop as well. So, now we get into Sierra's favorite part of the cases, the theories. So, theory number 1. She may have realized that she was alone in the early morning on Saturday, decided to make the most of her time up there before heading back a day earlier than she had planned, knowing that she's the outdoorsy person she is. Maybe she went for a hike or a swim. Maybe she got hurt, and because of the spotty reception, she wasn't able to call for help. Now, I'm going to scratch off that theory right away because the area was searched extensively and there was no sign that she was even in the surrounding areas. So, that one's not in. Theory number 2. Same. She was attacked at her campsite and taken somewhere else. Hence why the tent was left unzipped. Maybe whoever had taken her had something to do with her disappearance, realized that they had caused a disturbance in the scene, went back and zipped up the tent. However, if she was dragged away from the scene, I'm doubting that there would be any time if she was caught off guard to get her truck key and her cell phone. So, I'm going without that one too. Theory number 3. It was somebody at the party. So, as we said, there was reports that some of the original partygoers didn't even know some of the people that were there. So if anybody had noticed that Maddie was camping by herself, even though if there was other campers, like tents still there, Maddie herself was alone. So if they had realized that, decided to take that opportunity and come back later when everybody was asleep or most of the people were gone, that's plausible. Police also think that maybe somebody offered her a ride back, like one of the partygoers' acquaintances or whatever. I like to call it a sinister Samaritan. Maybe they had ill intentions and she took them up on their offer, just had her phone and her key and was like, sure, I'll get my stuff tomorrow, kind of thing.
I can't see
Never
that
made
one.
it home. Possible, maybe. And then the last theory that police have, because they literally believe that this either had to have been somebody at the party or this theory, that Madison Scott is a possible Highway of Tears victim. So, not all of the victims of the Highway of Tears have ever been found or pinpointed to how they went missing. Sierra, if you're looking at any of the photos, there's literally billboards along the highway that said women do not hitchhike. It's not safe. Killer on the loose. With missing women's posters there. So there was a documentary about the Highway of Tears that was done back in 2012 that Maddie's name was included in. However, she is not listed as an official Highway of Tears victim because they have certain criteria that if a body is never found, but that's somebody's last whereabouts, that they can discern that they may have been a victim of the Highway of Tears. There's been several serial killers that have operated in the areas. There are just crazy people that like hunt people along there. Like it's a scary place. It's usually
like
pitch
it.
black without moonlight because there's no street lights. And the reason why it's so dangerous is because there's so long of stretches between towns or between safe transportation that a lot of people end up hitchhiking. So the reason why Maddie was not officially linked to the Highway of Tears is because she doesn't meet the criteria, which means that she was on an immediate stretch away from Highway 16, engaging in an unsafe or high-risk activity, and alone, and a female. So she meets some of those criteria. However, camping alone does not constitute as a high-risk activity in this situation, as well as Hogsback Lake Campground is about 20 kilometers off of Highway 16. So it wasn't enough of a stretch.
Yeah. I don't believe any of the things that had anything to do with cars because I don't believe that she would leave her car purposely. Like,
No, I don't think
knowing
so either.
the wilderness, I think she'd be like, I'll just camp here. It's not a big deal. I'm not leaving my car. I'll camp here till I'm good to drive, and I'll take my own truck.
Yeah. I think that's exactly what she was planning, because she was offered 2 rides and wanted to stay.
Yeah.
But again, I believe that her family is probably right, and that if she, you can, I love camping. I'm totally comfortable in the outdoors. But if I learned that I was the only one left camping at a party that was supposed to be going on all weekend, I would want to leave too. Like, it would be a bummer, but I wouldn't feel good about staying.
Yeah. But she'd leave in her own car.
Yes, exactly. Like, she would wait until the next morning and then leave. But the creepier part about all of that is that an entire other day went by before anybody even realized she was missing.
Yeah, I think it happened before Jordy came back. I think
so too.
Wild speculation here. I am not trying to blame anyone for anything. This is just a theory. None of the parties are guilty until proven guilty by a court of law. Okay?
Okay.
So,
Wild
I think
speculation.
either Jordy or Garrett and his girlfriend had something to do with it. Specifically because of their differing accounts of the unzipped and zipped. I think one of them was lying. More specifically, I think Garrett and his girlfriend were lying. I think that it's possible. What does anybody know what Garrett's relationship was to Maddie?
No,
They're
just like
just friends.
Friends, yeah.
What
and
if
that was
the
one of the
reason-
theories that wasn't included, which I thought was interesting too, is if something had happened to Maddie at the party and it being their party and they panicked.
Well, what if the reason Garrett and his girlfriend fought is because Garrett, tried to get with Maddie. Maddie tried to get with Garrett. Garrett did take advantage of Maddie and got with her. They fought, whatever. And then something terrible happened, like she was killed. And then the next morning when they were finally back, not fighting, it was more of this like, okay, we take this to the grave type situation. Like, forget about our fight. We can't tell anybody about this ever.
Yeah, because they're the people that are saying that at 2:30 in the morning they offered her a ride back.
And that at 9:30 her tent was zipped up and they thought she was just sleeping.
Yeah. Odd. Interesting. I like that theory. Definitely odd.
I don't know Garrett.
I mean, all of these people were interviewed.
I don't know if he's a murderer, but
we don't know you, Garrett, but I mean, it's just not a good look.
Not a good look. Sorry
Jordy,
your birthday turned out this way.
Also, not a good look.
Yeah, I hate that she left, but at that age, in that situation, I can't see myself leaving because I am who I am, but I can see a friend leaving me and meaning no ill will by it. Just they leave because they want to go have sex with their boyfriend or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
I could totally see a friend of mine. I have a couple I can name off the top of my head that I could see doing that. Again, me being me, I wouldn't. But it's not something that I think is unusual.
But the thing that strikes me is that she came back the next day to get her stuff, learned that Maddie was not there, and didn't make any attempts to call her.
What's weird to me is why did she come back to get her stuff? Why didn't she just take her stuff in the first place? That's weird.
I thought that was weird too. But she was drunk and hurt, so maybe she just didn't want to deal with it, knowing that Maddie was staying there and her stuff was going to be safe.
That's the other thing I wanted to mention. She says she was hurt because she fell by the fire or whatever, but everybody else said
during this
she didn't fall by the
scuffle
fire. She was fine.
Over.
Hurt because she got into some sort of a fight with Maddie, and she hurt herself that way, and nobody else saw it. That makes her look sketchier.
Yeah, that's true as well. And just I think I missed this in my notes. Or saying it, I know it's in my notes, but whether or not I said it. So police did gain access to Maddie's phone records, obviously, after she became a missing person, because her phone was gone. So any pings would give some idea as to where she was. And the last ping... So other than the outgoing texts with her mom and the incoming texts around 11:30 on Friday, the 27th of May, the only other thing was one incoming call that had come in a couple hours later, but it was from and her mom never named names, but it was from a guy that her mom, her family knew. And police did follow up on that, and that led nowhere either. So, another theory is maybe something happened with these boys.
Yeah, that's true.
The one that she didn't reciprocate feelings for that got quote unquote huffy. Maybe she was downplaying it to her mom and it was actually a bad situation. And she just didn't want her mom to worry. There's literally no way to know. And this case makes me so mental just because of the nature of the way that it unfolded. Just because you have 5-6 hours where nobody knows what happened. Then her campground is empty for a whole other 24 hours where people are partying around it. Even if there was a crime scene there to preserve, it would have already been shot to hell after knowing about that second party.
Insane.
And that she wasn't there. So that's really scary to me too, to think that maybe a piece of evidence was left behind, and the only thing that seemed out of place when they got there was the fact that her tent was flat, and which they learned somebody fell on it, and the fact that her earrings were found outside the tent.
Yeah, I don't know. This is frustrating.
And I think the earrings are really just a red herring, because I don't think...
Yeah, I've actually... Like I said, I've heard this case before. It didn't have as much detail as this, so you did an amazing job, by the way. But
Thank you. Did you tell? Okay. Thank you.
It's good.
You were even taking notes.
Yeah. I've heard it told in other stories that, and I thought it was a ring. I didn't realize it was an earring. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention when I heard other people tell the story. But that it seemed like it was put there on purpose to, like, send a message. So,
Ooh.
I don't... Knowing that it's earrings, not a ring, and that it was, like, basically, costume jewelry.
Yeah.
And that it was right outside of her tent, it doesn't seem like that to me so much as
No, like
other
she could have
podcasts
easily
had always
taken
put
them
it.
off when she went to sleep.
Right.
Inside of her tent, and when she got out of her tent to go pee or something, she could have kicked them out in the dark and not noticed. Like, that's how I saw it. And it wasn't in such a way that it was like they were, like, scattered. Like, they were, like, pretty close outside of her tent.
Right.
It's not like they were ripped off of her or something. And again, nothing at the scene shows that there was any form of struggle or foul play. However, investigators do believe that it was foul play because it doesn't make sense that she just walked away. Like, she was really close with her family. Yeah. She was building her dirt bike. Like, it didn't make sense.
So weird.
And just the thought of, like, I don't know if you saw their picture of her parents on the drive, but, like, just the thought of those two people in their basement with their red yarn and just trying to come up with anything. Like, it's just the most heartbreaking thing you can think of.
Yeah.
The only other theory that makes any amount of sense to me is that somebody noticed that she was by herself and took her and were very good at it, and she did become a victim of the Highway of Tears. But again, that doesn't make sense either because people aren't taken from places. Like, they're on the highway already. That's why it's called, like... Ugh,
yeah,
it just makes me so mad.
I can't imagine someone coming back to zip up the tent in an effort to clean up their crime scene without, like, putting the earrings back in the tent or anything else.
And nothing came back on the tent or her.
Yeah. So
which surprises me too because of how busy it was around her tent on the Saturday night.
Yeah. The
to the
only
point that somebody
thing
fell?
Like, that makes sense to me is either Jordy or Garrett and his girlfriend lied about whether the tent was zipped or unzipped. Or maybe Jordy zipped it back and didn't realize, it was unzipped, but I zipped it. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, that's something I didn't think of either. When she was finished grabbing her stuff, she instinctively zipped it back up. That's what you do when you come out of a tent. This case makes me mad.
Yeah,
and
there's no answer.
The record, her phone or her keys have never been found. And there's been no ongoing activity on her phone either. So
it's so sad.
Yeah. Nowhere do her family think, or at least not out loud, that their daughter is dead. Well, they always word it as that she's somewhere waiting to be found.
Yeah.
And that she's been away from her family for too long. So obviously the belief is if foul play was involved that Maddie is gone. We just don't know where and in what context.
Yeah.
So, an incredibly sad case, and Vanderhoof, I think, is like 13 hours away from me. Mm-hmm. So my friend that lives up north is like pretty close to that area, like bumfuck nowhere. So it worries me that she's like a paramedic in those areas by herself all the time.
Yeah.
Just with her weird partners. So.
Yeah, I hate cases when there's like no definitive answer. Like my
and
last
there's so many details,
case,
but it leads nowhere.
Right. My last disappeared case was pretty, we thought we knew what had happened. This one, there is nothing, and it always makes me go back to the, like, bloop thing. You know what I mean? Like, she just got deleted. Like, what the fuck happened? She's just
Maddie
gone.
got deleted. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate
so
that.
Those are our additional theories.
Yeah. Oh, it's
very
the saddest
scary.
Thing.
If we can take anything from this case, do not leave your friends when you go camping with them.
Seriously. Like, Jordy, I'm not trying to blame you if
Jordy,
you didn't do
wherever
something,
you are, I
but
hope you feel enormous survival guilt.
Yeah.
And I don't wish poorly on people, but you just don't leave your friends in the woods.
You don't leave your friends, especially in the woods. Like, the woods are
Like,
great.
if you're going to leave them
but
at,
not
like,
alone.
the mall, fair, but, like, the woods?
Right, come on.
Just don't leave your
love the
friends.
woods.
That's the moral of today's episode.
Yeah, it's gross.
You go in the woods together, you leave together.
Yeah, always, no matter what.
It's a pact, guys. And as usual, we want to know what you're thinking. Do you have any theories?
Yes, please tell us your
What do
theories.
you think happened to Maddie Scott? And yeah, her family still posts updates on findmaddie.ca, and it's MADDY. Just so everybody knows, they unfortunately this year they did have to cancel their poker ride that they do for her because of COVID, which did unfortunately lead to a dip in their fundraising. So you can also donate on their website to help have ads placed for Maddie in the town of Vanderhoof and along Highway 16. Her poster is there. You would see her face if you're driving even now, which is almost 10 years later. So I do hope for their sake that they do find answers, and if you are able to donate to that, or if you have any information, please let her family know, because they deserve answers, and Maddie deserves to be put to rest.
Oh,
So
well, that was
guys.
a great case. I kind of hate it because I don't know what to think, but you did a great job.
Thank you. Next week, we will be doing Sierra's unsolved case.
man.
I'm sure she's going to
Disappeared.
bring it like I did. Sorry, disappeared. Just a reminder to tell your friends about us if you like us. Leave a review if you can. And if you want to send us a screenshot of your review, we'll send you some stickers as a thank you, which reminds me, I have to send some stickers to Wine, Dine, and Storytime podcast because they did leave us a review. Those goddamn
thanks.
sweethearts, them. And yeah, that's it. If you want to support us on Patreon and see all that fun stuff that we are doing, we are currently covering The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel. We will be releasing, by the time this episode is out, part 3 on the coming Friday. So you can join anytime and watch all of that fun stuff. And we will have our bonus case and bitch and wine and all that fun stuff too. So yeah. And I know $3 doesn't really seem a lot, or even $1 or $5, or I mean, I spent more than that on Pokemon cards this weekend for my husband.
Oh my
We don't
gosh.
need to get into that. But if that amount of money doesn't seem big to you, it is enormous to us, and it
Really?
one, shows your love for the podcast because you care enough to support us, and 2, because that means we're doing something right, and it's a big deal to us even if it's not to you. So just a little consideration for you. I know how much Starbucks coffees cost, okay? You are sacrificing 1 Starbucks a month for your favorite podcast.
Yeah, you can do it. Thank you so much.
You can do it. Yes, thank you. And we love you guys lots. Keep listening. And as always,
Keep it twisted.
Hi, and thanks for checking out Drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm Cassidy.
And I'm Amanda, and this is a podcast dedicated to the mysterious,
Are you into conspiracy theories?
true crime,
Aliens?
the paranormal.
If so, you might be interested in our podcast, Drinking the Kool-Aid.
Find us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts.
Just remember to keep your front door locked
Your mind open,
and
keep drinking the Kool-Aid.
Do you believe